Hello, welcome back to A Crow's Eye View, Witchy Wisdom and Tarot. I am your host, Kat, and today I am planning on kicking off something that I have not done in a couple years, but I believe it's time to revisit it. So, years ago, but not too awful long ago, I did have a private Facebook group where I taught tarot. And my group was filled with both new readers, many who had never touched a deck, but it also included many seasoned tarot readers who I loved the diversity and the reading styles. And even though, yes, I own and run a small business, which is Mountain Crow Tarot, I'm all about promoting other entrepreneurs and their small businesses because, if anything, it shows to anybody who's learning that it's totally okay that we all read differently. Our reading styles are not supposed to be the same. Like, how boring would that be, honestly? And to get rid of that fear of they're somehow doing it wrong. And then it also shows for people who may want a reading and they're trying to maybe wait for a sign or a reader that really resonates with them. They may meet this individual and they totally are drawn to them and they click, for lack of a better word. So I did this, and all of my tarot teaching moments, which is what I named them, can be found on my YouTube channel, Mountain Crow Tarot. However, those are dated, and I am chatty. Anybody who's met me or if they're part of my Facebook group, they know that I can easily chat and go into side narrative. It's both a blessing and a curse to be able to do this. So I think the great thing with having a podcast is this is my time with you all to sit and talk and stay very much focused. But yeah, I'm what I'm going to do is with this podcast, I am going to go through all 78 cards of the tarot and talk about the meaning, upright, reversed, and a lot of the symbolism and color usage, and numerology. All of these various things play a significant role with how we interpret cards. And even though I'm a strong reader on my own, based on years worth of reading for myself and other people, and so many books that I've read and courses that I've taken early on when I was a new reader, I still like to reference the book that comes with the deck as a secondary reference, or when I'm teaching, reference actual references so that one, there's another insight, and two, if you want more information, you can certainly look up these authors or tarot deck creators to acquire their work in order to grow your own practice. And I believe what I'm going to do is as I go through each card, I will do, even though I'm currently recording a video, you may not be watching me currently. So I am going to do my very best to describe the imagery of the card, to kind of draw you into the landscape of that card, which is a really big deal as far as like getting a feel for it, and share some insights from different people so that you can grow and realize that we all have the ability to read tarot. We just have to trust in our own ability to do so. And of course, I will include with these lessons like a witchy correspondence. So it could include like a meditation, spell work. I love candle magic, spell jars. So I will incorporate ideas onto each respective podcast that you may be able to tweak at home for your own practice. And if you're not into spell work or witchcraft, tarot can be used by anybody of any faith. They don't even have to be spiritual. So that tarot card gives a visual to where we're already mentally interpreting all these various things to assign meaning to what we're looking at. So the reason I'm saying this is you don't have to know all the meanings to all 78 cards before you do a reading for yourself. The main thing is to get your own deck. That is one of the biggest myths out there. Please do not wait to be gifted your very first tarot deck. Because one, why in the world would any of us want to hand our power away to somebody else? When we have personal volition and control and ownership over our own life. Secondly, what if this deck that you've been waiting forever on, you're gifted it, but you don't like the deck? And it's happened to all of us. We are drawn in by the imagery of the box that comes in, or we hear great things about it. And it's just like you get to know the person, like say if you're dating, and you open the box and you see it for what it is inside. And it's like such a bummer because the imagery either puts you off, or especially if someone's new and it's not based in the Rider-Waite-Smith, which a lot of people will abbreviate that as RWS. That's the OG tarot, which was also known as Tarocchi. That was back in Italy, back in the 1500s. Back then, tarot was played as a game by the wealthy. And then eventually, as the years progressed, then it filtered to the masses, who then used it for a lot of things, including divination. But honestly, you do not have to use tarot for divination even. It's an excellent aid to journaling. So I'm a big advocate of somebody having a notebook and they sit down, they pull a card, they interpret what that card means, and they think about how they've seen it in their day. And then they'll look up the meaning if they're learning, or if they feel stuck and need another insight, they can certainly look up another meaning. But it doesn't have to be used to try to divine the future. And when I do readings for other people, my own personal style, which does differ from other readers, because again, there's no wrong way to do tarot. And again, my opinions are my own of my podcast, so it's totally okay if people disagree with me, but this is my podcast, and you will be hearing resources, of course, but you're going to hear my specific personal insights for tarot, so take what resounds with you and leave the rest is the best advice I can give you. But honestly, I have my clients shuffle their own cards, the correct cards come up, and we go over kind of like their life circumstances and various things from the past that may still be impacting their future. And then looking forward to the next 3 months to 1 year and discussing next step. But like I've told people, based on their actions and their decisions, just like that, their whole reading can change based on that. And if people don't have faith in that, because I have read for a lot of skeptics, then approach it with an open mind and most importantly, have fun and see what can be taken from that conversation. So really, in short, that's kind of like my short and sweet intro to just get a deck and start using it, honestly. And plus, like myself especially, I have anxiety. So if I sit down with a notebook and let's just say I had a rough day, for example, and I'm going to write down everything floating around in my mind. I'm going to write it down on paper, right? And I may pull a card and see how it played out in my day and see what correlations I can see with the imagery based on what I went through during the day. And then maybe make a loose outline. And in that outline, determine, okay, what do you have control over? Versus what do you really have no control over? And if you don't have control over it, then why waste your time and your energy, which is very finite and limited, on something you cannot change? And unfortunately, with readings, there's actually a lot in our ability that we are able to change. And some of the hardest parts are sometimes stepping away from a relationship or a job that's not good for our well-being. Especially in this economy where many of us have had jobs or have jobs that we're not happy at, but you have to put food on the table and pay the bills. I totally understand this, and you do what you got to do. I have yet to encounter this, mythical green pasture of a job. And if any of you have found it, I think that's great because it has eluded me for quite some time. So I'm going to start off for people who can see by holding up the Fool. Now, in the major arcana, now if you count the Fool, there are 22 cards. Because the thing is, the Fool is generally outside of the Fool's journey because this is the individual about to journey through the major arcana. But these reflect like the major life shifts, right? And then we have 56 of the minor arcana, which are divvied up into 4 different suits, which are pentacles, wands, sword, and cup for 4. And those also have your court cards in them, which are your page, knight, queen, and king. The minors are more about the minor occurrences in life, the day-to-day mundane type things. So with the major arcana, what we're seeing is the central character, which we see what appears to be a young man with blonde hair, and he has one foot planted on the ground, and then one is behind him, bent at an angle, so he's actively walking, and his trusty white dog is beside him. Now, many interpretations, based on various things I've read, say that his dog is warning him, telling him, hey, stop, you're about to step off the side of this cliff. And based on the imagery, we don't know if this is a shallow cliff or if it's a rather steep one to where there could be harm or death that could occur. But this figure is looking upward, very optimistic. There's a bright sun off in the corner of this card, and the predominant hue and the color that we see in this card is yellow. And when I teach my students what does yellow mean, I want you all to think about how does it feel when you're outside on a sunny day? Even if you're like me and you're pale and you really don't like to hang out in the sun, but think about it initially, especially say after the winter and you're seeing the first signs of spring and the warmth and the flowers, and you step out and that sunshine's hitting your face. Okay? Now think about how that feels. So we can see everywhere around us, there's birds chirping, there's greenery, flowers, everything's illuminated, nothing is left in shadows. We fully see our path and where we're going, and it's warm, it's comforting, we feel alive, right? It's happy, joyful. Like even if you think of an emoji, okay, the smiley face is yellow. Yellow is on purpose. Again, that's a very happy, fun color when you think of yellow, So this figure is actively walking, and they're going to step off that cliff and basically take a leap. Now, of course, I have to be literal for a moment because communication is left open to interpretation. This is in no means advocating for someone literally stepping off a cliff or, heaven forbid, committing suicide, taking their own life or anything like that. This is a theoretical, figurative statement when we're looking at tarot. And I hate to say it, and you might think me silly for having to say that, but I want to make sure because just for example, some people will read something and interpret it really literally. So I make sure that I throw in things that are crazy, but it has relevance, okay? But we're going to move on from that. And so in the background, we see a mountainous range. Like there's mountains. But if you look at them, in this card, we have predominant, it looks like they're snow-capped. They're white. And we see a lot of light blue hues, and there's even mountains in the distance. Mountains mean delays and obstacles. So I want you to think about us trying to climb up a mountain. How would that feel if we were gazing upward at a steep mountain where, any of that, the rocks could break loose, they could fall and crash on us and kill us, that type of thing. But think about it, like many movies we've watched where you might have some people trying to make it to the end of a movie, for example. They have to traverse and get up this mountain to continue their journey. There's no other way to continue it, and they generally have to work together to accomplish this. Well, see, that's what that is. Obstacles come in different forms. But our fool is not even worried about all that because, again, very optimistic, adventurous, and they're taking the lead, essentially, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop my description here of the card. And just so you know, I pulled this from the Giant Rider-Waite Tarot deck, which is from U.S. Game Systems. This is an excellent deck to teach people with. I've had mine for a while. I haven't used it for like my own personal readings because I use a traditional deck for that where I can hold it in my hand and shuffle. This one's an excellent one. Like, yes, you can work with it. But you just do what you're drawn to do. And for me with this deck, it's more so with teaching than for my spread or even my one card pulls. So anything by Madame Pamita, I recommend. Like, she has a book about candle magic that's excellent. I have taught recently and in the past classes on candle magic, and she does a great job from the get-go, knowing how to shop for a candle, what color correspondences are, how to cleanse and dress your candle, how to charge it up with your energy, how to do your spell work with it. So if it's something that sounds like up your alley, look up Madame Pamita because she's one of my favorites. Now, the book that I'm using in reference to the Fool is called Madame Pamita's Magical Tarot. And it says it's using the cards to make your dreams come true. And I like the cover. It shows a beautiful, she's like a gypsy, and she's got this beautiful flower in her hair, and she's holding a deck up, and she's giving us the side eye, looking very mysterious. So I am not going to read this word for word, but I am going to basically read the beginning of her narrative and hold the card up for those who can actually see this video so that you can follow along with me. And this is entitled Your Adventure with the Fool. We walk down a path and meet up with another traveler, a young man going on a journey, walking through the mountains. The sun is shining, and it's a beautiful day without a cloud in the sky. He's traveling light with a simple small pack on a stick across his shoulder and a small dog as his only champion. Well, actually, his only companion. However, he's dressed in rich and flamboyant medieval garb, suited more for a royal rock concert than for a hike in the wilderness. Energetically, the Fool represents young energy and enthusiasm. He also symbolizes the realization of the true limitlessness of the universe's benevolence. That's a mouthful. The Fool is a teenager. He has just started on his journey and has his whole life ahead of him to have, do, or be whatever he can imagine. However, like many teenagers, the Fool card often gets a bad rap. Calling someone a fool is an insult, not a compliment. If you're a fool, you know nothing. You're an idiot. Yes, that blank slate quality of the Fool can be viewed as knowing nothing, but it is much more about the limitlessness, optimism, and potential of fresh beginnings. If you really want to get down to it, the Fool actually represents the beginning before the beginning. the moment before you take your first step and begin your path. It's not an accident that this card bears the number 0. It's the tiny speck that contained the universe right before the Big Bang, filled with the energy of amazing things yet to come. And so, just to briefly stop, so I mentioned earlier how with the major arcana, we have a total of 22 cards, and that's counting the Fool. But if you remove the Fool, since the major arcana reflects the Fool's journey, which is me and you, we are this individual. Again, sex doesn't matter. It can be male or female, even though it's a male pictured in this card. Don't trip out about the sex that you're seeing necessarily. But, if you remove them, so if you look at that 0, that is the number assigned to this card, and it reflects it's like an egg. So it hasn't been born yet. So think of a little baby chick and a hen sitting on it. It's not come to life quite yet, but there's potential, and it's infinite and expansive. This could also be seen like a seed that we plant. So there's a lot that can come from a seed even, right? If we plant it, we're going to get like a harvest. If we do good by that and take really good care of that plant, correct soil, watering conditions, adequate sun, all that good stuff, we're going to get a really good plant. So that's what we're seeing with 0, which I really like. And some tarot texts point out the fact, which I'm getting back to reading, that the Fool is gazing up at the sky while walking toward a cliff, a recipe for disaster. If you don't pay attention to the details, you're doomed. But the little dog beside him is the divine guidance within each of us that warns us just in the nick of time if we are headed down the wrong path. Like most teenagers, he may not think before he takes a risk, but all ends well anyway. We don't see how high the cliff actually is. It could be 2 feet off the ground. It might be a lot deeper than that. Divine providence is always on our side and everything will work out. The universe loves us. The Fool is energetically the start and the end of the soul's journey through the major arcana. When we end one day, one activity, or even one life, there is a space between the end and the new beginning. The Fool represents the space between the finish of one and the beginning of another. This space is not about planning, preparing, or even dreaming. It's about being present in the moment and trusting your intuition. That's a huge thing. And that will lead you to your first step. So it's trusting yourself that you got this. That, and I'm no longer reading, by the way, but really, what's the worst that can happen? And she does go over some of the symbols here that I did go over previously, so I won't bother going over some of the things that I've reviewed. I did review the sun and the color yellow, and she notes for the clear sky, it means openness, being carefree, and again, that feeling of joy. The cliff means stepping into the unknown and knowing that it's going to be okay, because really, when we hold ourselves back and we're hesitant, which it would be, say, if the Fool's reverse, we may be a little hesitant. We have to examine, why are we hesitant? And is it because of an external influence? So the dog could take the form of family, friends, coworkers who may be trying to tell us not to do something, even though our heart's really set on doing it, The face up, meaning positivity. So the Fool's looking upward at the sky, not down at their feet. So there is a brilliant, long, red feather protruding from the Fool's cap. And this means confidence. So think of red. They say for interview to wear red, it does project confidence. But it also shows love, of course. Connection to the divine. Light as a feather is an analogy that applies, which really fits well with the Fool. This flamboyant clothing that the Fool is wearing, shows just how carefree and open and playful that this character is in this art. They're not worried about what other people are thinking of them. Now, they pack lightly, and this does come into play with a lot of readings. Many of us, if not all of us, have baggage. If we've lived a life, we've acquired baggage. And in different ways, we have to pack lightly because if we compartmentalize and we don't take the time to process and heal and get rid of what we've outgrown and the people and places that, again, we've outgrown those too, and they're not good for us, it doesn't leave room for the new and it slows us down on our journey. So, and it's also an analogy. I travel quite a bit to perform readings at various events, and my husband can basically point this out. I overpack because I like to be prepared, but really, we don't need all the stuff. We just need enough, right? To do our hygiene, get dressed, and take care of ourselves. But I don't necessarily need all my accessories. I don't need extra outfit or extra eyeshadow palettes, even though it seems like a good idea at the time. See, the fool is packing lightly, and that way their journey's not slowed down by a lot of needless baggage, right? That would definitely be a burden. She mentioned how the mountain peaks are like meeting a challenge head on. But again, it is seen as a challenge, an obstacle. And the white rose. So you see the white rose that the fool is holding. This stands for innocent spirituality. It's like a blank slate. It's again a fresh new beginning. It's a new start. And a young man, it shows that youthful energy that we see in our young people where they say, for example, graduate high school and they're just ready to go out and go to college or, start a new career. And they are not quite jaded on life like adults become, They're very like refreshing and inspiring to be around as a whole. And I love a journal question that Madame Pamita has out of this book to explore this card more deeply or fully would be, when have you let go and trusted things to work out? What happened? Or you could even, tweak it a bit. And if it's something that you are trying to think about changing up, kind of examine, what are you waiting on? Where does that hesitancy come from? So let's see here. So, as far as correlations for when you do your reading, so say if you're examining a relationship. Now, we're going to talk upright meanings briefly, and then I'll review the reversed. So, upright, we're talking about a new relationship. Again, there's potential there. It's fun. It's something worth exploring, right? And it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be a friendship, networking, you name it. And you don't know this person and they don't know you, but it's something worth exploring, right? With career, it's taking the leap. It is applying for that job, interviewing, getting the job, switching careers. Again, pursuing something new. Or it could even be opening your own business, So like for me, it was back in 2023 that I started Mountain Crow Tarot, reading professionally for others after I read tarot for myself for years. And when I started my tarot journey, I never saw myself doing that. But with the encouragement of my friends and my family, which would be symbolic of the doggy in the picture, they cheered me on to where I was thinking, why not? What's the worst that can happen? That's how my mind thinks, Finances, it's investing, spending. It could be taking that road trip somewhere cool that you've never been, going to a new store, listening to new music. Maybe it's a new genre that you've never listened to. It doesn't have to be a big, grandiose thing you do. I mean, especially if you've got like one of these apps such as Spotify, look up a genre and an artist you've never listened to and see what you like or maybe dislike about it, you know? Um, and then also potentially considering maybe going back to school. That's another full moment. Maybe obtaining a degree and doing something different, you know? And that's why it's like it's good to allow ourselves to dream. Now, we all are, fairly pragmatic, especially as we get older and life kind of happens. But if we could do anything, that's where you should allow your mind to go. What could you accomplish or do if only you would entertain the idea? And then once you research it a little bit, then take the steps to make it happen, right? And then say if it's in reverse, which another thing with tarot is you don't have to read reversals unless you want to. Many people, they say there's enough negativity in life, and they don't want to read the reversal, so they upright the card. There is nothing wrong with that. You know, again, there's no hard set rules with tarot. You do what feels right with yourself in your practice, you know. And I would say other people's criticism and so forth, yeah, you can hear it and acknowledge it, but choose not to internalize it or self doubt yourself. Because again, you must trust yourself and your intuition. Now, this card, when it comes out in reverse, it could show hesitancy about moving forward with a new relationship or friendship or networking. Something is off. There's some reason that's a no go, and it's worth contemplating. With career, it's feeling bored, like there's a need for a change. We've all been there, I think. I think I can safely say that. And it's just like we know this is not where we're going to be for the longest time. Like we see ourselves wanting to do something else. And finances, it can mean overspending, being overzealous, not budgeting. So you see what I mean? And then when we look at the art, when it's upside down, think about it. Our fool, because none of us, gravity's not our friend, he would literally just be falling toward the bottom of the card instead of about to take a leap. He would be falling on his head, and hopefully he wouldn't suffer a concussion from this. But he would probably lose his knapsack because that wouldn't hold up. His poor doggy probably wouldn't land well either. And yeah, and I feel like the sun is kind of symbolic about getting burnt. Not necessarily planning or doing the thinking, because when we look at the full upside down, now the sun is where the ground would normally be. So think of it that way. It's like we're about to get burnt by not necessarily doing the planning, having the thought to, reflect, consider, talk to other people and gain an insight, Now, as far as tarot spells go, there's an excellent book that it is one of my resources. As you can see, I have different sticky notes and so forth because I do use it. It is 365 Tarot Spells by Sasha Graham. And on this, it says Creating the Magic in Each Day. And it's a really cool book. I also have 365 Tarot Spreads. And basically, you look up in the index if you have a particular card or intention you're trying to work with, and you go to the month and day that it indicates, because that's what this book goes by, even though there's also page numbers too. But for this particular thing, of course, I'm not going to read everything word for word because I don't want to overlap with what myself and Madame Pamita have said. But one thing I love that Sasha Graham says with this full card connection ritual, she's talking about meditating, where you relax your gaze on the card. If it helps you, turn on a little bit of music, keep it low, but to where you can hear it. get lost in the imagery like you're there. Kinda like picture yourself at an art museum. You're gazing at the card, and I want you to think, if you were in that card, where would you be in the card? How would it make you feel? You know? Seeing, like, being present for what's going on in that card, right? And what I love that she says about the fool is the fool risks everything because he has nothing. With nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. I love that so much. So, with nothing to lose, what's holding you back or me back from taking that theoretical leap? And if it failed, so what? We'll just brush ourselves off, get up again, and we'll be fine. I just think that as a society, we're so afraid of failure. And I have been hard on myself about failure. I'm not saying I haven't, but we're not defined by our failures. Uh, a Star Wars reference, just like Yoda said, and it may have been to Anakin Skywalker, if I recall correctly, we learn from our failures. And that's a lesson, right? And then ideally, we try to pass that knowledge to somebody else to where they don't have to go through the struggles that we went through, right? But again, what do we have to lose? You know? And so, what I like to do is when I meditate, my mind never stops. And I'm sure many of you are in a similar situation. Allow the thoughts to come and go. Don't like attach to any particular thing. Just let it kind of like be present in your mind. And be mindful of your breathing. Breathing in slowly for about 4 seconds, holding it for a couple seconds, and then releasing slowly over 4. If you can do that, or to the best of your ability, it doesn't have to be 4, of course. But physiologically, we're slowing that heart rate down. That helps us with our anxiety, helps us get a bit grounded, which grounding practices, I would say research that if you haven't already. Those are helpful. But it kind of gets us into that moment. And say we got some peaceful music in the background. Got a little bit of sage or Palo Santo, clean your space. And then I want you to relax your eyes and gaze on that card and just reflect on it. If you can do this for 5 to 10 minutes, that's great. And then write down what you're thinking and feeling from that card. You know, that's how you bond with your deck. You get to know your cards, right? Now, as far as an incantation goes, with any type of spell work, I recommend people do not do your spell work trying to go word for word from the book because it's not as powerful or effective if it's not yours. So you want to tweak it and make it your own. For me, I'm big into candle magic. So because the Fool has the predominant color usage of yellow in the card, I'm going to get me either a yellow candle or white can be used for any purpose. And I'm going to cleanse it. So I will take my sage or Palo Santo and I will go in a counterclockwise motion around the candle as I'm cleansing it, getting rid of that negativity and any energetics that may have attached to it from other people handling it. Feel free to inscribe it with, say, your initial symbols and so forth. A general rule is, and this varies, this is not hard set based on the practitioner, but we do not do spell work without someone's blessing, and or to try to get them to do something which goes against their will. Because people have the freedom of will and free will to make choices. So it's not like the Practical Magic movie where, the aunties got in a person who lived in town. She was obsessed over this young man and she wanted him to love her so much that he couldn't stand it. And the aunties took her money and killed a dove and did spell work so this man could fall in love with her. That type of spell work, it's not healthy nor encouraged. At least from my viewpoint. You may hear different viewpoints from different people, and that doesn't make them, again, wrong. You have to do what resounds with you. But if for love spells, if it's to improve a relationship, some element to it, or ideally, when we work on ourselves, then if we start there, then we will see those results in our life. So really, it's more about working on ourselves and our capacity and ability to love and be vulnerable and open, right? Then that's more realistic, and we can do the work. So with spell work, it's more than just making our intention known. It's being willing to do the work to manifest, right? That's a huge part to spell work. But anyhow, so I got my candle set up, got my anointing oil on it. I love glitter, so you can add a different layer of, you can either match it with yellow, or if I want to, say, kind of ward off negativity, maybe I'll use a little bit of black glitter. But you can layer like a lasagna your color correspondences for candle magic, you know? But once it's all said and done and you're charging it, say you have that candle and you're holding your hands, I would say over it in close proximity, again, fire safety rules. But you can speak your incantation, I would say 3 times, focusing on that flame after you light it and you're charging it with your hand cusped around the candle. Now, Sasha Graham's incantation is doorway threshold, which I love because the 0 is like a doorway. Ground I stand, what is this foreign mystic land? Answer sought, questions known. Through this territory I shall roam. Trod this path like souls before. Search until I find my door. Now, with your spell work, if it rhymes, that's great because everybody loves something that has a flow and it feels witchier when it rhymes, right? But I have done spell work where my lines did not rhyme. The most important thing is that you mean what you say and you believe it. And you believe it, you put the energy out to the universe, and you're willing to do the legwork to manifest it. That's what a lot of spell work is. You could see it as a variation of prayer. It's implementing a material thing to supplement prayer, is the way that this could be looked at. But basically, that is the full card, which I think what we'll do is we'll progressively cover the major arcana before I switch gears. And I'll probably go over each suit, but then also do the court cards for each suit as well. I think that's what I've done before. People will get a real good feel for what that suit means because the court cards are probably some of the hardest cards to learn. Just because of the feminine and masculine energies. But the main thing is once you really get acclimated to your cards and your suits and what they mean, it kind of gels, and then you understand and you have the big aha moments that, yes, you're getting it. You can totally get it. You're totally capable. So I think this wraps up this version of Crow's Eye View, and I have enjoyed my time spent with you guys. Now, if you have questions, which I love questions, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I don't like that statement. You can write me at mountaincrowtarot@gmail.com with any tarot-related questions or concerns or anything witchy-related. And if I don't know, we'll figure it out together. Okay? Let's see. My website is mountaincrowtarot.com. I can also be found on Facebook and YouTube under Mountain Crow Tarot. And I think that's the gist of it. Thanks again for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you guys later.